Hi, everyone. I'm Don Sauce here. I'm the Faculty Associate Director of the Teaching and Learning Center, and you found a way to our Professional Development Series. And for that, we are grateful. The Professional Development Series meets at noon on Wednesdays over Zoom over the course of the entire academic year. And we record these events for asynchronous viewing. So if you're here in real time, I'm really glad to see you. If you're here asynchronously, I'm glad to see you too. I'm just seeing you at a different time. And for colleagues who are here and say, hey, I want to show this to my colleagues, you'll have that opportunity. Couple of announcements as we get going. First of all, we have the opportunity for you to earn a professional development certificate through the TLC, and that information will be dropped into the chat by one of my colleagues. And we have those for graduate teaching assistants, graduate students, staff, faculty, etc. We also have the possibility for faculty to become TLC fellows, which they are committed to not only extending their own excellence in teaching, but the excellence of others. And then usually they get to present in our PD series the next year. So it's a great way to kind of extend your influence on the excellence of teaching at K-State and beyond. We also have a TLC hub on Teams, and if you attend our events, we'll add you to that Teams channel. It's a great way for you to kind of see information. You get the web links to these sorts of things. You hear about events. We actually have some conversations about teaching on there too. So definitely take part in that. A couple of events to put on your calendar, and the first is for tomorrow. Tomorrow, and hopefully we're going to do some social media blasts on this as well. We'll have the first of our Teaching Tech Talks. This is a series that our Academic Affairs Innovation Office, led by Joe Maysberg Tomlinson over on that side of it, is setting up some talks that are kind of more geared toward the techie side of teaching. These will happen outside the PD series, kind of as these probably about monthly events. And the first one is tomorrow, so Thursday, February 19th at 3 p.m. And our session will be led by Jana Thomas. Jana Thomas is Professor of Practice and Assistant Director of Strategic Initiatives in the A.Q. Miller School of Media and Communication. And she'll be talking about immersive simulation experiences, AI, and tech-enabled applied learning that we can use with our students in class. So definitely check that out. It'll be over Zoom. And hopefully one of my colleagues will drop some information in the chat about that. So it should be a good time. We also have on Monday, March 2nd, and this is for the university-wide, not just teaching related, there's the Perks and Resources Showcase. So you can definitely sort of check that out. We'll drop some information for you on the chat and that as well. TLC and the Academic Affairs Innovation, I'll have a little table there, so I'll have some of our resources going. And then a bunch of events coming up. We have an academic publishing event that we're doing in conjunction with New Faculty Institute and the Graduate School on Thursday, April 9th from 2 to 4. We're still working on the logistics for that event, but it looks like it's going to be a bit of a hybrid event. So we'll have an in-person component, a potential Zoom component, etc. But we'll talk about publication issues and how to do it, both for books, edited books, and peer-reviewed journal articles. So kind of all the ways that faculty might be publishing. So we're very excited about that. So again, Thursday, April 9th, 2 to 4, information forthcoming. We will have a room, but we'll also have a Zoom link for that. And then I was going to say finally, but we're not to finally. We have the SOTO Showcase on Monday, May 11th, that afternoon. Instead of the ground floor in Hale, we're actually in the Hemisphere Room, 581, starting at 1:30. And we'll give that information out as it comes, just kind of a save the date for now. We'll have a call for proposals that hopefully we can see you share your ideas about innovative teaching and maybe even some of your research on teaching and learning. And then finally, and as a segue to our event, Wakonse will be May 22nd to 27th. And our speakers today will tell you all about that. But the Provost Office accepts applications to give you scholarships to help cover the cost for that. And those are due to the Provost Office by April 1st. So I want to put that on your radar. Next week, our event is going to be Dr. Andy Faber talking about cultivating motivation to promote lifelong learning. Very excited to see that. And Dr. Faber is going to talk about, hey, it's not just the grades that we need to be inspiring in our students. Maybe get some intrinsic motivation going there too. So I'm very excited for that event. But without further ado, and I apologize for the length of my announcements today, we have a panel of people who have been to one of the most enriching, enlightening, just inspiring teaching conferences that has ever happened. This is the Wakonse Teaching Conference, and we have a bunch of people here who have been there who are going to tell you all about their experiences. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it off to all of you.
So I didn't know who was going to start. I came prepared with one of the origin stories. By now, there's like multiple origin stories of how Wakonse came to be. And the one that stuck with me the most is supposedly there were these three faculty from different departments, different institutions, different departments who separately met on summer vacation at the American Youth Foundation camp. and ended up having the most amazing conversations with each other, only to get back home and realize, shoot, we work across the quad from each other. You mean we had to go hundreds and hundreds of miles to have this conversation? Yes, yes, you did. That's really one of the kernels of truth that Wakonse grew out of, is that if you take faculty and move them out of their regular institutions and just throw them together, lots of stuff just kind of just develops spontaneously. The conversations, the inspiration just happens. I don't want to go off on this too much because I know that Carrie's got limited time and I don't want to like talk over her time. But last year it was myself, Natalie, Carrie went, Bill Jenneru went. I'm looking at the names on the panel to see who can talk about our specific year. Do I go on, or does somebody want to jump in with something specific? Oh, there's your deep fried asparagus. Hey, Suzanne, you finally got to try it. Okay. The other way I like to describe it is when I was a young faculty and I started to go to physics conferences, you do the thing where you'd make notes and list all of the different sessions you want to attend. But the things you end up remembering are not the sessions, it's the conversations you had outside of the sessions, these little impromptu things. So Wakonse to me is kind of like an unconference where they focus on that. Yes, there are presentations, and yes, there are sessions, but really the meat, it's like an Oreo cookie where you focus on the white stuff because that's the part everybody enjoys anyway.
The way I describe it to people is it's summer camp for professors or for faculty and graduate students. And it really is summer camp where you get prepared for it, you have your packing list, and you're a little nervous because it's completely new and you don't know what to expect. And you show up and you meet your roommate. And by the end of the week, your roommate is like your best friend, whether they came from your institution or not. There's games to play, there's people to meet. One of the coolest times was the sunsets overlooking Lake Michigan as we all sat around and chatted and got to know people from different institutions. There were lessons during the day, just like at summer camp, that you could choose to go to, but you could also have some quiet time if you needed it. I did a revise and resubmit while I was there. Um, and then there was bonfires and camp songs and all of those other kind of kitschy stuff of summer camp from your youth. But the biggest thing is it was time away from work, family, cell phones, in most cases, internet, that you just had time to be present with people and be quiet in your head.
I would agree completely. I was so excited to go, and I think looking like now, sometimes I dream about being there because it wasn't like perfect. There were lots of discomforts actually while we were there, but there was so much space that we like right now, the world, it was this place where you're kind of separate from everything. I feel like even all of your roles are stripped away. So like while you're there, you're not a professor, you're not a mom or a daughter, you're just you. And you get to learn about the things you're interested in. We went to the lighthouse, like, so you get these opportunities to learn and grow with people who love the same things that you love. And then also the getting to be alone, or like the Lake Michigan. Oh my God, just the place is so beautiful. And it just fills your soul, I think. And that's what I'm actually longing for. Natalie and I went to the craft house and we like maybe had a beverage and colored, after a long day of talking about how to be better teachers, right? And we got to share what we were doing in the classroom, which was fun. So I think the thing that I'm surprised about most is how much I miss it. How much I would like it's a place that I would definitely go back to. So
I learned how to throw a pot.
We should clarify what that means.
I was gonna say, I think I need explanation there.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's Michigan. No, like the actual ceramics, stick the clay on, have it spin, 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 stick your hand in it and make a ceramic thing.
I was expecting something much more violent when you said that.
I think one of the fun things, like Carrie mentioned, not having a role while you're there, but I do think it was a place where we were all learners and teachers. So sometimes there were people that were selected or had submitted to actually present something. Sometimes there were just impromptu dialogues. Sometimes the presenter said, like, is there anyone in the crowd that has some mental health background that could help with this activity? So everybody got to step in wherever they felt comfortable or uncomfortable. The dancing there was teaching values by learning bachata. So that was a discomfort for me to try to follow the dance moves. And we could challenge ourselves in different ways. So I had, in the past couple of years, I had some heart challenges, and I was worried about walking down to get the asparagus and if I could get back up. But then I chose the lighthouse tour, not knowing that it was 130 steps to the top of the lighthouse. But I did it. I made it. I got myself a lighthouse sticker by going all the way to the top and felt super proud of myself for doing that. They put you in small dialogue groups that really become close. And the unique thing about my dialogue group was it was very early faculty and very seasoned faculty. And just being able to reassure one another in the path, I thought was really great because there's different challenges depending on where you are in your teaching journey. So that's some of the things that are memorable to me. And the cold. I didn't know until I got in the van to leave Salina that June there is like April in Kansas. I think Bill told me that when we were on the ride, so I had not quite packed the right. I was layered up and wore my same two sweatshirts all week too, Suzanne.
So the pictures you just went through, that's the polar plunge. And for you Kansans, because I'm from Wisconsin, so this is not shocking. Um, the water is cold. It is a little in the mid 40s if you're lucky, depending on the year you go in. And so there is a polar plunge that you can choose. Nobody's forced. You can choose to go in. And I got a t-shirt. I don't know what they had for you you guys, but I got a t-shirt for it. But I'm from Wisconsin, so I just floated while everybody could. But it was lovely.
All I got was a sticker.
And Carrie and I stayed warm. We did not participate. But I would say going in, I was actually rather hesitant, not about the teaching part, but just about the unknowns. And so now that I've been there and done it, like I'm with Carrie, we were like, oh, we should go back. Now that there's that little bit of, we know how the summer camp runs, it would be so like even more enjoyable because it takes that little bit of unknown. But I think it also helps talking to those who have gone to ease any questions or concerns as much as possible. But yeah, going there is a unique experience that was so fun. I loved getting away and just talking with other humans about teaching. And I loved my dialogue group too. At first, I was a little sticky about I have to talk to the same group of people multiple times a day. Are you kidding me? And then I loved it. I looked forward to it all the time because they were such fun people. So, yeah, it was great.
I
We
would
can
add, I would add to Natalie, like, definitely if you ever think you want to go, you should ask a lot of questions to the people who've gone because between Rick and Suze and Beth, Natalie and I were prepared. So like our cabin did not have heat. And I think it got into the 30s at night. But we were prepared. We had warm clothes, we had extra blankets, like we brought big suitcases. And so I was actually super comfortable and slept so well. But if I hadn't had those conversations, then that would have really been a downer.
So I've been probably half a dozen times now. And so last year was very cold. Sometimes it's rainy, sometimes it's really hot. So you need to come prepared for well, you need to look at the weather forecast before you get there in the first place. to get an idea of what to expect. But really, don't forget your shorts either. You might want summer clothes while you're up there. I've been there when it's in the 90s too in May, so just a word of caution on that. And then I think also the big thing that Wakonse did for me was it put me in the role of a student. I'm always learning something at Wakonse. I'm no longer an expert in pretty much everything that's going on up there. I'm surrounded by experts in their field. A lot of times there's experts in biology, and you go on a nature walk and there's somebody explaining all the birds and trees and the geological formations, and it's just you can be a student again and understand what it's like to not know everything that's going on around you, have that uneasiness that all of our students always have. So.
And this year there were students, there was a lot of students there. I think we had 100 undergrads. Um, and it's nice to be able to have these conversations between students and faculty when there's no tension. I mean, I don't know these students, they don't know me, and they're free to talk about what they enjoy, what irritates them. We did a high ropes course where I'm basically my life is in the hands of this student holding the rope down at the bottom. And she's like, what, 80 pounds or something like that. At one point, the rope started to lift her off the ground and everybody else had to kind of hold on to her. When you throw people together like that, you can't, it breaks down the barriers to communication, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I love the point about to be a student again, because when students come to class tired, there was some nights in the cabins where people stayed out late and they came in loud, and then it's like, oh, I remember now what it was like to live in group living. And even though I tried to go to bed, somebody else is up late. And the other thing I loved that I haven't mentioned, but there's a lot of photos in there, is like, there's no other day in my life where I get to sit down and have 3 meals. And good food. It was good food, and to literally, like right now it's the lunch hour and I've got a bag of pretzels sitting here, but to sit down, eat 3 meals and have fellowship, I loved that part of the day as well.
I have one more comment, and then I'm going to have to sneak out soon. But um, so, like I said, I've been several times now, and the smartest thing I did was get involved early in my time at K-State. It was my, I think, third year, and it was highly competitive at that time. They took a certain number of people, and we always had to turn away 2/3 of the applicants back then. So, and I'm hoping that we build it back up to that point again where it's competitive, and it's kind of a privilege to go, because honestly, I have met so many people from K-State through Wakonse as well as outside of K-State, and they've helped me in my academic career. I've written papers with Wakonse people. We've commiserated with our teaching and how to solve problems and things. Um, it's just been a real blessing to me to meet other educators that want to be excellent in the classroom, and that's what it's all about.
To me, one of the big aspects of this is it goes beyond just the actual camp itself. The traveling there and the traveling back, when you throw these people together in a van, it becomes a bonding experience as you drive there and drive back. Even back in, wow, 2008 was my first time I went, and Steve Stockham was organizing it back then, and he gathered a small van full of K-Staters, which joined to a busload of Mizzou, I think. Bill could help. Yes. And we went from there on to the camp. So the journey, the travel is part of the experience, and I wouldn't trade that for anything.
So I'm gonna chime in. My initial perception before I went to Wakonse was this is gonna be weird. So and I worry that some of the people who are kind of out there thinking be like, this doesn't sound like a conference to me. This doesn't sound like how I normally go and visit with colleagues from other, universities and talk about academic issues. So I'm wondering if you could comment on how each of you kind of came to terms with the weirdness and why the weirdness is actually a good thing. And I think we've skirted around a little bit, but I want us to just take that on directly.
And so, Beth Pesnell, who can't be here because she's in class, and we are basically yin to each other's yang. She's totally type A, everything has to be labeled, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, whatever. So for me, it didn't bother me. I'm a go with the flow type person. If I was in the 60s, I'd totally be a hippie. Beth really struggled with the the weirdness. Um, Unlike a conference, you don't have to go to anything you don't want to go to. I mean, you're like signed up to present something that you know about, but it's not like a talking head presentation. It's we're sharing a practice that I've used in my classroom that works for me. Maybe it'll work for you. And so there's not egos involved in this. Unlike at a conference when people are like, and here's my card, and I'm really cool. You need to know me. There's none of that kind of stuff. It's just we're all hanging out talking about teaching and learning. And you can see from the pictures, it's casual. It's sweatpants, sweatshirts, jeans, and more than one pair of shoes because you will get wet. So there's not that part. And it's really because we love what we do and we get inspiration and ideas from each other. So there is a schedule, but it's not always kept to. And for type A people, that can be a real struggle. For go with the flow people, it's like, yeah, cool. I'll go hang out by the beach.
I am more like Beth in this scenario. So I absolutely wanted a schedule and I wanted to know everything. And even then, when we did get a schedule, it wasn't informative to me at all. There were like some general words that might be spoken about at these different times. And I fought it at first. And I'd be like, no, I want to know what your session is about. I want to choose properly. And then once you let it go, I think, actual purpose of the whole not really conference happens. So, yes, I too wanted a strict schedule. And then when I realized you're there for you, you really are. You're there for you to become better in whatever way that means. It was great. Like, so I too, I butted up against it until I just let go. And then I was like, oh, this is great now. And it was. I'll go back.
I'm
I
surprised to hear the presence of students at Wakonse. Can you all talk a little bit about I mean the value for faculty is clear, but what are what are the students doing there?
I'm not entirely sure I can speak to why they're there. Some couple of students that I guess I got close to, more they got close to me, were grad students with an eye who were eyeing academia, and so they were trying to get some tips about, okay, what's the best way to secure an academic position and that kind of thing.
They
Um,
said that, oh,
Oh
they
yeah,
said
go
the
for it.
undergrads were there for a leadership conference.
Yes. Yes.
But
And then they
that
interacted with us at random times.
they also told us that there's some rebuilding post COVID. So they're kind of insinuated that things aren't like when Don went or when Rick started going in the beginning, and that they're trying to get like some of the people who were there in the beginning aren't really there anymore. They're like retired or have died. And so there's a lot of rebuilding. And so they're bringing back this idea of maybe having undergrads. And Natalie and I were a little bit like, we both liked that idea,
Mm.
kind of, but also we kind of wanted to be like we were there to like be with grad students and faculty members and like
Yeah.
have different kind of experience as well. More than yeah. So
Yeah, to not have to step into a role again with the undergrads, although they were there for leadership conference. So these were like the best of the best undergrads that have been selected to be there. So when they were in some of our discussion groups, I was so impressed. I was like, you're already thinking like this? But yeah, at the same time, it was a weird feeling when the undergrads would just randomly show up when we weren't told. They would just sometimes be in our activities and sometimes we had to be separate. So I don't know. Rick, do you know going forward if you're including undergrads?
We are trying to get some undergrads to come, and we're trying to cap it at about 100 because what we had
Okay.
last year was about right. The only question is there was some comment about them being too separated out, like the undergrads had their activities and the
Mm-hmm.
faculty had their
They
activities,
did.
and how much do we want to blend and how much do we want to respect
Yeah.
the boundaries?
Yeah. Yep.
So Rick, you might
Something
have,
I wanted to say in response to Don's question, and it's going to sound weird. I never know. I go to Wakonse and I find myself staying up, having this conversation and sharing things. And after the words have come out of me, only then do I realize that, wow, I've been building that up for years. I have been preparing to say that, and I didn't even know I was preparing to say that, or I was preparing to ask this question or get this answer, and I didn't even realize it until you put me together with these people who have similar issues that we don't always get a chance to talk about at home.
yeah, I think the space for reflection intentionally is something that we often don't have time for in our everyday, which is sad, right? But we often don't have time to just sit and think and reflect and that space for innovation and that space for revision, that space for throwing everything away and starting again, right? I think it's a real advantage to Wakonse. And one of you had mentioned before, like the unplugged nature of it, that like the year that I went, we could only check our email on a couple of laptops that were like hardwired into the internet. Um, and you could only get phone reception if you stood under like one street light, kind of thing. So it's you really were like there. And as soon as you came to terms with the unplugged nature of it and accepted that, I think that was okay. But I think there were some people who didn't like the year that I went, I think there were people who were very disappointed this wasn't like a normal conference, like the people who came out in a suit the first day, and realized, wait, that's not what this is. And I also felt kind of in talking to people, there were a lot of people who very much love the craft of teaching. And they're going there to have conversations and to think in new perspectives, to hear what the students have to say and all of that. Um, and there were a couple people who were there kind of for more remedial reasons that they were having some issues with their teaching, so their university sent them there. And it wasn't necessarily something that they chose to do. So there were these kind of different pockets of resistance that I kind of saw in my Wakonse experience, and I don't know if that has been reflected in the more recent years or not, but it did create a little bit of challenge because it'd often be like a naysayer in a group, not a devil's advocate, but like an actual naysayer, and kind of, oh, why do we care what students think, sort of thing. Um, and it challenged some things I wasn't expecting to have challenged at the conference. But I think it was a good conversation. I think it helped me think, but there were just, if I were to describe Wakonse in one word, in both good and bad meanings, I would say unexpected is kind of what my experience with Wakonse was.
It seems like internet was better this year if you wanted to be on it. Like you could find people in, lobby areas working on something. I had a student thing that I needed to respond to, and I was able to do that. Um, until the day they were trying to make the closing video, and then they were like, please get off the internet. We can't work with all these photos and make the video. So I think that might have improved. But what I did is when I vacation, a lot of times I'll read a bunch of books. So I had a bunch of books with me, but I found once I got into that awkwardness of being with people I don't know and doing things I'm not comfortable with, I didn't crack a book at all. I thought I would read in the van or listen to books in the van, but the five of us talked the whole way. We learned a lot about each other. We still have a text chain where we shoot photos back and forth that are like memories that pop up from the trip, or Carrie and Natalie and Jess and Taryn and I have had lunch a few times since. Like, I left with this feeling like I wanted to bottle it up in a can and bring it back. And I came back excited and asked Rick for the whole list. Like, how can we get people together? How can we have a spirit of Wakonse in between? But then life takes over, and so I wish we could figure that out in some way that all of the, Wakonse fellows could connect outside of Wakonse at least once a year just to inspire each other. Because there are days I feel like a naysayer and I need the positivity and encouragement from other people to help me over that slump.
I should have.
Yeah. Oh, I think
Go
we
ahead.
absolutely should. I've told you that I'm all for our own little Wakonse, like a K-State version of at least once a year, where it's either alums who've gone or others, but it would be great because it's so fun to be with other people who've experienced it.
Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. The 4-H camp would love to host us.
There is on the provost's website a list of all the faculty at K-State who have been to Wakonse. And I probably should have thought to bring that and pop that up on the screen just so everybody knows who they can ask, hey, what was it like for you? Along the way, we discovered Amy, Rosine, and Matthew Basil, who couldn't be here today, but they went in 2024, but they never got a chance to do one of these TLC presentations. One of the colleagues I went with I'm not going to dox them, 2024, I'm sorry, yeah, 2024, had this habit of when we came to the big dining hall and sat down to a meal, would look around and say, yeah, no, I've already spoken with you, and move to a different table to join a different group and then get some new conversation going with somebody he'd never met before. I thought that was brilliant.
So I'm an extreme extrovert and Beth is an extreme introvert. And so I would make her do that with me so she would meet new people. Which, when I was a kid at summer camp, I did that with.
Suzanne, did you do anything for the Chautauqua? I can't remember.
I did not. I am not that talented.
So do you want to just let people who might not know what Chautauqua is, what that is?
So in the present context, the Chautauqua is kind of like a talent show at summer camp. I think it derives from a tradition around the 1900s of a traveling tent show that would bring entertainment and education to different communities.
Which in Wisconsin, we have on the, like, literally, you can look across the lake. Across the lake, we have Big Top Chautauqua, which is exactly that. It is like a big honking yurt. And so it's a very, like, we still have this in the Midwest. And I know Kansas is Midwest, but I mean, Wisconsin, that up there, Midwest. And that's exactly what it is. Many people, as you see through the pictures, bring whatever instruments, ukuleles or guitars or harmonicas or whatever. I think we've had a little bit of stand-up or storytelling and definitely music. We had, if I remember right, we had one of the group things. What are they called? The daily groups. Lost the word.
I'm
Anyway.
looking at your hand gesture.
You mean the
No, the daily groups that we meet with every day.
The dialogue
Dialogue
groups.
group. One dialogue group did a readers theater about their experience at Wakonse. And so it's any type of talent or non-talent that you want to show people.
The students did skits this year, so they were in different, I don't know if it was their dialogue groups or what, but there was probably 5 or 6 groups that did skits that were entertaining.
Bill brought a banjo and showed everybody this is how well you can play a banjo after practicing for what was it, 2 months? He had literally never touched a banjo till prior to that. And so he said, I've got 2 months. I may have the time wrong. How much can I learn in 2 months? And showed us.
Kind of along the line of those 30-day challenges and what you can do when you challenge yourself. He likes to have students do that. And he got the crowd to sing along. He a couple of songs and got the crowd involved.
So, would each of you be willing to share like a takeaway that you kind of had from Wakonse, like something that has changed your perspective on teaching, maybe a practice that you use? And I'll just kind of share one as an example. When I went, they introduced me to the concept of teach less better, right? And it doesn't mean teach worse. It means teach less content, but do a deeper, more thorough job, higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy and things like that. And I quote that daily. That's a huge part of the things that I do, and I teach the principles college teaching class. That's, a foremost concept that we kind of do. And I have Wakonse to thank for that. This very, very simple kind of way of changing your entire outlook on teaching, that created a lot of different teaching practices for me. So I wonder if anyone else had any kind of takeaways that they've done that have actually changed how they teach.
One thing I take away is that we often think about how to build belonging or connection in the classroom, and within this, handful of days, you took these groups of people from all over the country and you built connections and relationships. And so that is still a powerful practice. There are people outside of K-State that I'm still in contact with from the experience. And so it can only take 4 or 5 days and you can feel connected to someone and want to continue that relationship. So imagine the connections we can build across an 8 or 16 week course.
I would say mine is less maybe classroom focused, but it was a shocking reminder how we all need a break. And we can say we need a break, but until you are at summer camp away from everything and you can't do all your normal things, it was amazing. And to think that so much learning and space can occur in an unscheduled way is a good reminder for my type A-ness that also even brings that into the classroom to give them space, with some intrigue into letting them learn how they want to and in kind of maybe less traditional ways. So it was great reminders personally, but also it reflects into the classroom.
So for
Mine
me,
was,
one of the most impactful things, and this seems really silly, and I got to remember to do this. At the end of our week, we were asked ourselves to write ourselves a letter. Did you guys do that last year too? Okay. Um, and so it was a letter of what we wanted to remember, but also a letter of what we wanted to do in the fall semester. And they actually mailed it back to us in December. And when I got the mail, I'm like, who's writing me? Because I completely forgot I had done this because that tells you my Swiss cheese memory. But it was really cool to be reminded of that thing that had so inspired me in May when we were getting to be the end of the semester and things were dragging down. But I also remember really struggling with writing that letter because that's just not the way I think. And Beth was like jotting her stuff down and all the things that she was going to do. And I'm like, I don't know. And she's like, just tell me one thing by December. What do you want to do? And it had nothing to do with teaching. It had to do with I wanted to be able to get back into child's pose in yoga. She's like, write that down. It doesn't have to be this big grand thing. It's like what's it called? The Atomic Habit guy. He talks about being 1% better. It doesn't have to be 10, 50, 100% better, 1% better each day. And what will that do?
it's like hearing from the you from a different universe, or from the universe where you're not hung up with all of the work issues and the life issues. The thing I came back with was the finding that comfortable zone of discomfort, enjoying the enjoying being uncomfortable, finding that there's a better word for it, and I'm probably butchering it. The comfortable discomfort, I think, is and trying to help students feel that. I should put a plug because it's coming up again this May. Looking at the dates, it's the May 22nd through the 27th. But the date you really want to remember is April 1st because our provost's office is providing some partial support for this, but applications need to be into the provost's office by April 1st.
And pay attention to what the applications are because Beth knew about this and she's like, hey, you should join me. And it was due in 2 days. And I really rushed at it, which again, didn't bother me. But pay attention to what you need because you need a letter of recommendation from somebody.
I'm almost wondering if we should invite or encourage somebody to apply because I think that for our campus at some point the connection may have been lost. And so if we don't show the provost's office that it's valued and that people are interested in going, so somebody that's went maybe encouraging or thinking of someone we might encourage to apply is a good way to keep the commitment to Wakonse there.
And one of the things that I like about a conference like this is that force multiplying effort. So you go there, you learn, you come back, you share, you do things. So it's not just really a personal thing, it's a collective thing. And this is a great climate that we bring back. I think the perspective, but along with the techniques, are really good things that we can bring back to our campus. And if we have people going there every year to do this, I think that's going to be great. And I think there's value to going more than once, but I think there's definitely value in going at least once. So getting some new blood into that would be something that we'd be interested in. Does anyone have any closing thoughts?
Well, I'd
Slideshow.
like to ask you guys something. I heard somebody once say that he didn't want to go to this because he didn't feel like he was burned out yet. But this was something you go to when you're burned out on teaching. How do you guys reply to that?
Let's prevent burnout. I mean, that I think burnout is a bad situation. If we can do things to stay invigorated, that's better. Like let's well, I'm speaking. Natalie is a positive psychologist in many ways. Natalie, you want to chime in?
I would just agree with what you just said. Like, let's not get to burnout before we put in some help and some assistance. Absolutely. So yeah, if it's framed as for those who are burnt out, I mean, we're all kind of tired. So um I would say it's it's not to that point. Let's do it a little early. But yeah, if anyone's interested, I think all of us are very excited to share what our experiences were and how it went and to prepare as much as possible.
You know, as you asked that, Rick, and as I'm listening to Natalie's answer, one of the things that does occur to me is like it's it I realize it's scheduled when it is for a reason, but it's almost the wrong time because I can't then immediately do the cool stuff. So, I don't know if like an early August would be better or something like that. So you kind of charge into that spring semester. And there's a lot of reasons August wouldn't work too, but it's almost, when I'm thinking I am the most burned out, it'd probably be then that I am the most burned out. Um, and it's fulfilling, but I'm almost, hyped up at the wrong time.
I thought its timing was odd too. Like I was like, rush, 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 right? You're rushing through the spring semester, which flies by already. And then I didn't have a breath before I was thrown into this unconference. And then I was like, oh, I think I did actually need it right then and there. So yeah, you don't get to implement potentially immediately, but timing wise, it surprised me that it was at a really good time when I could then reset, collect from the whole academic year, and then step into summer. But
I
yeah, it's at an odd time.
Rick, I would tell that person when you register, there's a place that you can lead a dialogue on staying inspired or not getting burned out. Please come and share that with the rest of us.
It, and that's something I'll amplify too, is that when I went and they said, you know what you to present on, I treated that my prep like a real presentation. So, I had slides and all of those kind of things, and I got there and I was like, wait, there's no projectors or anything. So on the fly, I had to kind of turn that into a facilitated discussion, which was really cool. But it just kind of goes in that we're talking a different animal in terms of a conference than what many of us normally go to.
But how great for the people that don't often get to go to a conference to present, that maybe their role isn't a role where they're putting together materials to present at conferences. So this is an opportunity to check the box and say, I'll lead that dialogue and, watch the sunset while I'm chatting with friends on a porch.
Yeah. And CV line, for those of you who are needing those kind of things, right? Um, so any other final thoughts before I close it up with announcements?
The topics that I engaged in, I can't imagine what other conference would have had those topics.
That's an excellent point. Um, I think one of the things that I always find when I go to professional conferences, it's the little teaching pieces that are the ones I like the most. So, for instance, our big social site conference is next week, and the teaching pre-conference, that half-day conference before the real conference starts, that's usually for me the most important part. But a lot of times you gotta find your people at the conference. At Wakonse, they're kind of all your people. And that makes it just a it's a very validating, I think, fulfilling experience in that way.
And one of the things I really appreciated, and it was with the dialogue groups, but just across the board, this is a teaching and learning conference, for lack of a better term. Unconference would be better. But I was put in a position to talk to people that are not immersed in my field. So the shorthand language I use with my field did not work with people in other disciplines. And that was so important because in our dialogue group, we had an entire session just talking about definitions of terms we were all using, but we were using them differently. And that was powerful because if I want my voice to go beyond my field, I need to understand what people in other fields. And when we talk about teaching and learning, I mean, I'm a teacher. I've been a teacher most of my life. I live and breathe this stuff. But the vet med professor doesn't. And so, like I said, the shorthand that I use, she did not understand. And so I had to articulate what I meant by these things.
All right. Well, I want to thank all of you for such a wonderful presentation about such a wonderful experience of Wakonse. I'll reiterate, this is happening May 22nd to 27th, and the provost office will have their applications due to potentially support you toward this on April 1st. And that information, I think, has been put into the chat for you. I'll remind everybody here that we have a post-event survey we'd love you to complete about this event. I'll let you know that next week's event in this series, Dr. Andy Faber will be talking about cultivating motivation to promote lifelong learning. I announced a lot of other events at the beginning. I won't go through all of those, but I will tell you that tomorrow, Thursday, February 19th at 3 p.m., we'll have our first teaching tech talk, and that will be starting at 3 o'clock over Zoom. You'll have to register for that, and we'll have information that we'll put out in our hub, et cetera, so that you can register for that event. It'll happen over Zoom. It'll be Jana Thomas talking about immersive simulation experiences, AI, and tech-enabled applied learning so that we can use that to teach our students in really engaging and powerful ways. So I'd love to see you there. So thank you so much again for such a wonderful presentation. Thank you all in the audience for everything that you do at our university and beyond. And I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon.